What is up, you beauties? My name is BatchatBegins, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're actually going to be talking about a tank that is on sale right now in the store, that being the VK9001P. This tank is an absolute menace on the battlefield. It's got some very unique characteristics that actually help it to perform the super heavy job better than most super heavies. That being one of the things is it has 3 degrees of gun depression over the front. You know, it doesn't sound that great, but as soon as you get the gun over the side, it has 10 whole degrees of gun depression, coupled with the fact that it has monstrously troll side armor and an amazing front plate and very small weak spots on the turret. This tank is an absolute beast, but there are definitely some shortcomings, and we will be getting into those in today's video. First thing we need to do is kind of go over the stats a little bit for the VK. 2500, almost 2600 HP, and that can be buffed up if you do run the enhanced sandbag armor. You can run both of them if you want and get that up to about 2800. I prefer to actually use both of the foods and the fuel as per usual because I like my gun characteristics to be as good as they can be, and this gun is a little bit troll, unfortunately. So as far as the turret has 300 millimeters of effective armor and 230 on the hull. 120 side armor. I mean, this thing is absolutely crazy on the turret sides, and 140 on the side of the hull, which is just nuts. This thing is a side scraping monster, and you can actually over angle it and get some very troll bounces against mediums, which is great. Now, as far as the DPM goes, it's kind of substandard, I would say. Like 2400 is great, but you know, it's not that great when you're coming up against heavies like the Concept. You know, when you're getting absolutely dumped out by a 57, that can be quite annoying. So I wouldn't say to try and 1v1 at close range with anything that's hyper mobile, because, you know, this is a super heavy after all. One other unique thing about the gun on this thing is it's got 290 AP pin when you're running calibrated like I am here. And that is the highest AP pin for a heavy in the entire game. Absolutely crazy good. Now, the armor piercing, the APCR, it's not as good, you know, 336, but it is workable. You know, every medium in the game when you're running calibrated shells gets up to about 330, so this is just a little bit above that, and it's not too bad. High explosive, not that great, but when it does hit, you know, you're doing 600 damage a shot, absolutely crazy. And like I said, 10 degrees of gun depression. 10 degrees of gun elevation, though, can be a bit tricky, so try not to, you know, push your tank up onto any ridges on the rear, otherwise you may have some trouble hitting people. Now, getting into the rest of the stats for the tank, you know, it goes 30 top speed, not too bad, you know, it's got 12.1 power to rate ratio, not great, not great. But the biggest thing with this tank, and what I'll say, is you have to know when to push, when to position, because its biggest issue is actually getting into 2v1s and 3v1s, because you end up angling like this to one person and somebody else can see the side of your turret, or, you know, somebody else is like behind you and they can see your turret side and the rear of your tank. So you need to be careful with the engagements of your choosing. You need to stick with your team for the most part. As far as consumables go, I found that running adrenaline and the reticle calibration is very, very nice for this tank. You may just want to end up running reticle calibration though, and the gun definitely needs it at times, because this thing, when it's on the move, has some subpar accuracy, is what I'll say. As far as provisions go, we went over that earlier: double food and the fuel, and a healthy loadout of APCR for your tier 10 games. As far as equipment goes, I run the calibrated shells, the gun lane drive, and the vert stabs. You know, I got my health here instead of armor. Now, you could, you know, make an argument to run armor, but I think because it only has about 2600 HP, it definitely could use this this improved assembly at this point. Now, I do run engine accelerator in this just because you're only getting an extra 1 or so degree of traverse out of the improved control. So I do go ahead and run engine accelerator and optics as per usual on my heavies. Now, as far as that stuff goes, I'm going to go ahead and hop over to Armor Inspector, and we're going to show you just how you want to side scrape the VK90 in your games. Now, when hopping into Armor Inspector, as you can see, this is what the VK90 looks like frontally. Very, very strong upper plate, very strong turret sides, and very strong turret. You know, the weakest part of the turret is going to be like 300 millimeters on average. And the lower plate is the only part where it becomes a bit of an issue. It is pinnable at angles like these, but if you do side scrape it, I mean, look at that angle. That is pretty spicy for mediums. So mediums, a lot of the time, what I will do is actually over angle the tank a good bit so that this becomes kind of troll, and they have to aim for this really, really tricky weak spot to hit on the move. A lot of the time they'll end up hitting the tracks or the side of the, the upper side of the hull here, which ends up being spaced and they end up bouncing. So this tank is very, very good in a side scrape, as you can see. You're not going to be pinning that unless it gets very, very hyper angled. And obviously you can get the turret down to 10 degrees at this point. So, I mean, just look at that. I mean, it's ridiculous. Anybody trying to shoot at you over a hill is going to have a very tough time if you're hiding that hull. Now, the important thing to note is when people load heat, they are going to be able to pin right here on the turret. It's not going to show it very well here, but I'm obviously not running like calibrated shells for the E50. Well, I am running it on here, but it's not showing it for some reason. But if I switch over to like a tank destroyer, the weak spots get a lot more noticeable. So let's just go ahead and pull out Old Faithful here in the 268 and just show you those weak spots. Yeah, there we go. So as you can see, when looking straight on with AP, you can notice it, but it'll become a lot more obvious with heat. I mean, these are the weak spots I'm talking about right here on the cheeks. They are very easy to hit if you stand still, and so is this hatch. So make sure that when you are side scraping, that you just go ahead and make sure to like wiggle the turret back and forth. This is going to be a lot harder to hit if you're like throwing your gun in front of it, and they're still probably going to pin you, but you need to make sure that, at least when you're fighting a TD, that you're making sure to wiggle, because this thing can be pretty easily pinned if you're just sitting there. These are rather large weak spots if they are a tank destroyer and are loading heat. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into our first replay of the day. And that's going to be the VK90 here on Yamato Harbor. And this was actually a very good use of both the armor and the pushing capabilities of this tank. I was playing here with Australian, a former clanmate of mine, and we were both playing VK90s, just kind of talking over the tank, enjoying the gameplay with each other. And for the most part, this is a heavy that you're going to want to bum rush heavy side with. You're going to want to be the alpha dog, the bully on the heavy side. And the biggest thing about the VK, like I said, is these fantastic side armor profile and tracks. It certainly does have a very large lower plate, but if you are able to angle it for the most part, you will get some fantastic bounces of it. So what I'm doing is I'm going to actually cross just directly in front of A to see who I can spot. It's going to be hard for them to hit the lower plate on the move, and I'm presenting a side armor profile. And right here, as you can see, I've used my reticle calibration, so I am able to get a shot into the IS-8 on the move, as is missed behind me. And so what we're going to do, since he's shot, the U-100 is hiding, and he's on reload, we're just going to go ahead, pull up here, and get a shot into the IS-8, and try and work on finishing him off, because the U-100 is lagging behind his teammate right now. And at this point, I don't care if I take a shot from the U-100, we're just going to go ahead and start moving our way in. And because I gave the U-100 a heavy angle, he actually did end up bouncing off the front. I think he may have gone for the track wheel. But the thing is, the track wheel on the VK90 is incredibly troll. And with that really great AP pin, I mean, just look what we're doing to this poor guy. Him and his teammate just gone in the first couple minutes of this game. So I accidentally rushed this shot a little bit. I was going for the upper side armor on the E100. I should have gone for the rear of the tank, but I was too focused on trying to get the damage in before I moved on. As you can see, I want to kind of leave the E100 to my teammates, want to help him finish him off real quick. Just put in one extra shot. I'm sure by the time I do get reloaded, he will actually already be dead. So we're just going to go ahead and move on, heading towards the Conway, and it looks like the 121B was headed back this way as well. So we do have reticle calibration, we have full HP, nothing too deadly over here for us to worry about. I mean, if we do stand still, the 121B could hit us in the turret. It would just be a really tricky pin for him. But what we're going to do is just cozy on up to this shipping container right here and try and shoot this 121B with the reticle calibration. As you can see, very, very small aiming circle. We do end up having it for about 20 seconds, so that does help us get a very nice shot there into the 121B. As you can see, I really do like reticle calibration. It's just one of those things that helps out tanks immensely. I mean, I've used it on the Waffle, as you saw in a previous video, and now I'm using it here on the VK90. Another thing you can see, we have 3k block damage. I mean, we are absolutely cruising through this game right now. I even gave the side of my turret to the Conway, and he ended up bouncing, so we're sitting pretty at about 3,600 block damage, which is absolutely crazy. we do get a very nice shot into the Conway to go ahead and bring him down to 700. Now, at this point, I thought my heavy was actually going to stay with me, but it looks like he moved up and away towards the 121B, which actually forces that guy to come back towards us. So noticing that, I'm going to go ahead and try and get a shot. Like, you can see the 3 degrees of gun depression there over the front, but then I ended up turning it a little bit and ended up getting that 10 degrees. So at this point, I was like, I don't want that medium on my side. That could be a problem. Nosy on up to the mound here and end up getting another nice bounce from the 121B. And of course, we definitely want to go ahead and finish that Conway off. And the only person left at this point is the 121B. We almost managed to get the ram on him, but unfortunately no juice. So 4,500 damage, 4,700 block damage in the VK90 for our first game of today. So you can see, of course, we're going to get that steel wall medal and a very nice Brothers in Arms because I got 2 kills and Australia managed to get 2 as well. Now, before we get into the next battle, we're going to kind of talk about the VK90 a little bit more in detail on the offer side of things. It's 22,500 gold, and you do get quite a bit for this. I mean, not only do you get the tank, you get the camo, get a nice avatar, which I'm sure most of you have a preferred avatar that you're already running, and you get 25 times 5 boosters. That is absolutely crazy. That is very good, in my opinion. Is it worth 22,000 gold? That's the real question. I mean, 22,000 gold is looking to be just about over $50. You buy the $50 bundle here, and then maybe the 20... Now it's looking to be like $75. Honestly, I'm not so sure the VK is worth $75. I mean, that's really up to you guys in the end, but I would say probably not for me. I think I ended up getting this thing in a snow globe last year, and snow globes are a lot cheaper, so I think it'd probably be better if you ended up gambling your money in the snow globes, because you could end up getting something like this, or an AMX M454. I mean, there's just a lot of options that you can get for rather cheap. So I would say if you have the money and you really don't care about spending it on a game like this, then go ahead, but as far as I'm concerned, that is a little bit too steep of an offer. If it was just the tank for sale and it was like 18,000, that might be worth, but certainly not for 22 in my opinion. But with that being said, if you have bought the tank, this is a perfect opportunity to go over, you know, the strengths of the tank. We're going to go ahead and get into the second battle of the day here on Normandy. Again, playing with Australian, just using this double OP VK90 platoon, just cruising through and destroying some people with this tank. And this will be actually a great opportunity to showcase the gun depression on the VK90. Of course, Normandy is full of very large hills, and it is a hull down paradise. Like playing a Kron on this map, E5, Chieftain, I mean, they are all absolutely goated at this map. And because the VK has that special mechanic with 10 degrees on the side, it too is a menace on this map, because you're showing that 300mm turret front to everybody, and it's just so easy to get bounces, because most of the time they are not just going to be brawling with you. Most of the time they're going to be kind of sitting back and afraid of this tank. And the nice thing about this tank is it has really good alpha and just this really snappy gun, plus this armor profile. I mean, it is a winner for sure. I would say as far as like power rankings, I still would rate this thing below the Yo and below the 57, just because of the sheer amount of damage those tanks can put out. But this tank is fun nonetheless. As you can see, kind of wanted to go to the left here and start hitting those guys, because I'm not too afraid of this pattern. But look at that. Look at this 10 degrees of gun depression we're using on this guy. He never stood a chance. All he could really see was the top of my engine deck and my turret. I mean, he never stood a chance there. So as you can see, that's where the VK's kind of gun lets it down. You know, you do have to aim in quite a bit for this thing to hit its shots, and that's why I like to run reticle calibration on it, because not only am I on the move quite a lot, because, you know, this is a slow tank and it needs to catch up with his team, I do often, you know, take snapshots, and it's not the easiest thing to do in the VK90, unfortunately. So what we're doing here is trying to get a couple of shots into this FV215B. He is making it a bit difficult for us, and I probably should have gone for APCR there to potentially put a dent in this guy's armor. Fortunately, we do over-angle it enough to where the VK does try to shoot our lower plate, maybe our track there, and he doesn't pin, which is great for us. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead, move off to the side, you know, slam on the reticle calibration just to make sure that this gun doesn't derp out at this point, because this is a rather close game. And I'm just trying to make sure that we take this guy out. Now, I'm definitely showing the front of my hull at this point. You can see he did aim at that, but I wanted to go ahead and make sure I get a shot into this guy. I didn't want to leave it too late and that actually would cuck us over if we didn't get that kill. So at this point, you know, just backing up because I noticed the E4 is pulling up. Don't want to give him a free shot into our side, but definitely do want to focus him because he is taking shots at my platoon mate. Thankfully, when two of us shoot him, we do take off about 871, which is great. You know, we're like a mini 183 in that aspect. And unfortunately, Mist is going to go down to the 60 TP. Unfortunately for us, like I said, we've got pretty good pen. You know, our standard is pretty good, and our premium is very solid as well. At this point, the 60 TP is rushing. Now, he could kill us, but if we give him a steep enough angle, there is a good chance we could bounce. And thankfully, because of the 60 TP's, you know, notoriously troll gun, it does, I think, hit the track instead of the lower plate. And fortunately, we do bounce quite a bit of damage that game, and we are able to absolutely hold the ridge like a boss there in the mid on Normandy. Very, very good game from myself. You know, 4k damage. E4 did 3k, you know, our platoon mate did 2. Absolutely putting in the work and getting those bounces. As you can see, you know, we received 7 hits, you know, or my bad. Yeah, we received 7 hits, 7 penetrations, but for the most part, we actually traded very, very well with the enemies. This game, like I said, was more about the gun depression than it was the bounces. So, as far as the VK90 goes, a very strong tank. I would say run it in a platoon so you don't get absolutely rushed, because you can never really trust your public match teammates. And if you do get rushed, the biggest thing is try and put yourself in a corner so that you can, you know, take your enemies head on and you don't have to, you know, start focusing them from side to side, because that is where the armor just kind of falls apart. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this VK90 review. This has been your boy, BatchatBegins, and I will see you guys in the next one.